You're listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast, a podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm Ty Polk, and I'm joined by Chris Ward and Guthrie Rasmussen. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The fearless leader, the beginner of the Renegade Blitz. We're joined by Zach Napolitano. Glad to finally have you on the show, man.
About time, right?
It's about time, like LeBron James after winning a championship.
Or like Bart Scott says, it's about damn time.
We couldn't wait for it. But Zach, before we get on to this week about the Steelers versus the Eagles, talk about the beginnings of the Renegade Blitz.
So it's kind of funny. I actually started the Renegade Blitz as a troll page, and you guys know that Blitz Zach Twitter, and it started off as that, and it actually just blew up into something huge that I didn't even see coming. So, but then I met Chris, and I reached out to Chris. I saw that he was actually posting a lot of Steelers content, and I really liked what he was posting with Steelers content. And so I reached out to Chris, and we've been together for 5 years now, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's 5 years in December. It will be
5 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's gone by fast.
And it started as just posting any Steelers news. I mean, I've seen the tweets. I think I've been a follower for the Renegade Blitz and the other @names that it's had since around meeting Chris, which was 2016.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
So we've been through a lot. We have been through quite a bit. What happened, Chris? We've been suspended twice now?
Yeah,
for
twice
nothing.
Copyrights. With music and stuff. So that's why we created other accounts. To post our video content and stuff.
Yep, that's exactly why they're separated. And now I started that Blitz guy just so I can talk about like other sports instead of just talking about Steelers all the time. So, and it's kind of a little wild, but I enjoy doing it.
I'm sorry, Zach. You kind of sound like you're from here. It's like I know Chris is from Philadelphia. Guthrie's from around in the Ohio area, Cincinnati, I believe. Are you originally from Pittsburgh, man? I just gotta ask.
No, actually, I'm not. But the funny thing about it is every single one of my family members are from Pittsburgh, Monroeville, actually. That's the funny thing, and I'm the only one that's born in Florida.
Olmsted represent, man. That's where I'm from. But Guthrie, how did you hear about the Renegade Blitz? Just to start off and get a little bit of a get to know us.
Well, it was just about being a follower, and just following their content when I couldn't watch the games when we didn't have it on TV. Especially since I'm in Cincinnati, their tweets is what I followed. Their play-by-plays, their clips. That's what I had because I'm not a very big radio guy. I can just sit and listen to a game. I like having the visual. I like being able to read it. And it's like when there's a big play, hey, they got their video right there. I can see, Juju make that 97-yard run for a touchdown. It's like you typically don't get to see that in Cincinnati. It's, since Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, they both kind of share CBS, it seems like, especially in that area. They rarely had a game on Fox. So when Cincinnati was playing at 1 or Pittsburgh was playing at 1, odds are it was always Cincinnati on TV. So that's pretty much how I've heard about them.
And that's why our tagline is for Steelers fans, by Steelers fans. But now we got the pleasantries out of the way. Let's get back on to the Steelers' last contest, a 39-28 victory against the Eagles that moved them to 4-0 on the season. It's the first time quarterback Ben Roethlisberger has gone 4-0 to start a season. Yes, we do remember the 15-1 start where he reeled off something like 14 consecutive wins. But the last time the Steelers went 4-0 in a season was 1979. The Steelers capped that off with their fourth Super Bowl victory of the 70s. Guys, we've all seen the Twitter talk, saying that the Steelers' opponents are 2-14-1 over the entire season. It's expected wins, but you have to remember one of the reasons why we're talking about this 4-0 start, because usually there's a letdown game early in the season. So I don't know why people are complaining. Are you guys happy about this? Because I'm happy about it.
Yeah, so being 4-0 is 4-0 regardless of how bad the teams are. That's what it's all about, as Mark Madden says. In fact, this is even better for the Steelers because they have been known to lose to inferior teams. So Mike Tomlin has even known to string a few Tomlin specials here and there throughout the season and lose to teams who the Steelers shouldn't lose to. This is just an obstacle they have overcome by not looking down on teams and puts them in great position for the next 3 weeks against some tough teams. I've been hearing all week how this has been the easiest schedule to become undefeated for the Steelers, which may be true because the teams they have played are 3-15-1. But again, 4-0 is 4-0, so I am going to enjoy every bit of this undefeated Steelers season as I can. And the team hasn't been 4-0 since 1979, so just let us enjoy it while it lasts. I also saw a video of a Yinzer, I think his name goes by Matt Light, who was jumping into a river with his pants off, celebrating the Steelers being 4-0. Thought that was incredible. Shout out to you, Matt. Way to take your pants off and jump into freezing cold water. That was a great video.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great start for the Steelers, obviously going 4-0. We're not used to this. They usually come out of the gate slow. And, they're taking care of the teams that they need to beat. I mean, how many years have we seen them lose to bad teams, like losing out in Oakland or something like that, just something crazy. So it's good to see them take care of business so far.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is the NFL. There are no easy wins despite the records. Like, anything could happen. Like, I know we'll get into this, but, we were all, I'm sure, pretty nervous going into the second half, seeing how that Eagles team was coming out.
That was typical Steelers football. I had a heart attack the whole time.
It's not typical Steelers football if they won the game anyway.
Well, that's true, absolutely. But still gave me a heart attack. It made me want to throw my TV outside the window.
We want to talk about the big stories offensively and defensively for the team. And one thing was third down situations. The Steelers were feasting on offense and in famine on defense. The Steelers went 11 for 15 on third down, with Ben Roethlisberger going 13 for 13 with 158 yards and 2 touchdowns in that situation. We get mad at third down play calling, but it seemed like everything was clicking for the most part offensively on third down.
Yeah, it's about time they started converting on third downs. They've struggled over the past few weeks. I believe they are currently 29 of 60 on third downs right now. They could get a lot better, but without a preseason this year, I look at their first 3 games being preseason games, getting themselves into gear to play real football. Even though this is already the regular season, I am just thankful for the teams they did end up playing these past 4 weeks. And then another improvement the Steelers offense has made is with Ben Roethlisberger. Ben typically holds on to the ball quite a lot, so this was a great improvement by Ben against the Eagles. During the Eagles game, he actually averaged 2.26 seconds from time to throw, and that is the 4th fastest in a game Ben has played since 2016. I think ultimately the real test on third downs in this offense going forward is going to come during the next games against teams that have a combined record of 11-2. Just like Tomlin has been saying lately, the pack is as strong as the pack. That always, it's Tomlinism. That's pure vintage Tomlin. And every time he says that line, it makes me laugh.
Yeah, Ben was unbelievable on third down. I mean, 13 for 13 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. You just saw Ben changing the play on that last touchdown to Claypool, seeing that he was lined up with a linebacker, and Claypool just blew past Nate Jerry and scored that last touchdown. And they didn't have that last year, obviously, with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, to be able to change the play at the line of scrimmage. And Ben just brings that experience, 17 years in the league. And he's just been reading the defenses so well this year.
To keep you on that thought, there was actually one video out there by Emmanuel Acho that showed Ben's checkdowns to get that play off to Claypool. That's how Claypool managed to get Nathan Jerry, who is currently, as I watched WIP, just getting killed by everyone in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. He was burnt toast on that play. He was burnt toast.
Doesn't it remind you of the times that, usually a linebacker would be on a receiver for the Steelers, like Keenan Allen for the Chargers a few years ago?
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see it on other teams. It sucks when you're the team that this happened to, because it happens all the time. It's just how sometimes matchups are. But Steelers made a good call. Fickner made a good call. Ben made a great check down change. That was a great play by him, and just making that adjustment, got us a touchdown. Especially they didn't really run it that much in practice. I think they ran it mostly with Ebron. So it was just great for Ben to be able to, progress through his reads and move to see that Claypool was there wide open. That, like as you guys said, he burnt him.
It's kind of funny because Ben actually on the last play to seal the game, Ben actually changed the play. They never practiced that play ever. And the funny thing is Chase Claypool actually ended up in Ebron's position during that play. So they never practiced that ever. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, Ben's certainly getting away from that, early designation in his career as a backyard quarterback. Basically, he'd be able to just evade every blitzer, and then finally a Steeler wide receiver would come back to the play, and it's a miracle completion for him. It's certainly good to see that Ben's getting his due in the national media. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we'll go to the other side of the coin on third downs defensively, and man, it was just a mess for the Steelers. The Eagles went 10 for 14 on third down. The old Achilles heel of the Steelers raking its ugly head again. They are currently 50%, half and half, on third down conversion against. It's the fifth worst in the league.
Yeah, allowing a 71% completion rate on third down is an awful statistic, especially allowing it to happen with teams that don't really have that great of offenses. And letting Travis Fulgham put up 152 receiving yards and a touchdown is ridiculous. It was great to hear Tomlin address the third down issues during Tomlin Tuesday today, but he didn't tip his hand on how he plans on fixing the third down issues. And I think the problem with the defense is we are expecting more from a defense who has 8 first-round picks on the team, and they are all starting. With that expectation also comes the talent. And I mean, the defense is blitzing at an all-time high, and it is working. I mean, I believe Pro Football Focus said they're blitzing about 52% of the time. And Chris and I were talking about it the other day, and the Steelers are actually averaging 5 sacks a game. And if they actually keep up with averaging 5 sacks a game for the rest of the season, they would equal to 80 sacks. I don't think they'll end up with 80 sacks, but that's still an impressive statistic.
Yeah, I mean, Fulgham just had the game of his life, 10 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. I read that, or I looked it up, and 5 of those third down situations of the 10, there were 5 of them were third and long situations, and Fulgham had 5 of those completions on third down. So it's just unbelievable game for him. And I don't know what the Steelers' issue really is on defense right now. It's like you mentioned, Zach. I think it's probably the blitzing too much, leaving quarterbacks on islands. And Minka's been quiet too so far. I mean, he struggled at times on Sunday. You saw that missed tackle he had. There was some miscommunication on Fulgham's touchdown that he could have been responsible for. But yeah, they'll definitely have to shore it up. I have confidence in that they will. But I'm not too overly concerned right now about the defense. But they definitely need to clean it up on third down.
Yeah, like Tomlin says, it's just a small sample size right now with 4 games going on. I'm not worried about it either. I think they'll clean it up.
Yeah, but they got to do it soon. It's this wasn't really encouraging to see what they were doing, but it's just typical. We're not we're used to this. This happens every now and then. It's just we just got to hope they tighten up and work together. What's so good about this group is when one group kind of falters, it's the other group picks them up. So like if the defense kind of not having a great game, well, we got Ben Roethlisberger and Chase Claypool, putting on the games of their lives, to win us the game. So as long as we keep, picking each other up, like the pack mentality, as what you guys were saying, that's the best thing.
We'll talk more about the defense compared to the rest of the league, which I think will surprise a lot of people, frankly, about how the defense is doing and really how the entire league is doing defensively. But let's get to this. Guys, being that I'm the lone person that's actually stationed in Pittsburgh right now, I can say this without any doubt in my mind. Chase Claypool is the third most adored Canadian athlete in this city, behind only Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby. He feasted on the day before Canadian Thanksgiving with 7 catches for 110 yards and 3 pass-catching touchdowns, to go along with his 3 attempts on the ground for 6 yards and a rushing touchdown on an end-around that opened his scoring salvo. And in turn, he set a Steelers rookie record with his 4 touchdowns. His performance forced Darius Slay to switch onto him from his original assignment to Juju Smith-Schuster. He would have had more stats. Another touchdown if it wasn't for just porous officiating from a challenge, and that would have gave him at least an 8th catch. And who knows if that drive continues. And that janky OPI call in favor of a stumbling Darius Clay. But guys, what did you think about this coming out party for Chase Claypool?
What a monster game by Chase Claypool, though. When Deontay Johnson went down with a back injury, he stepped right in and made the most of his opportunity. Who would have known he would have put up 4 touchdowns in a game? I felt bad for all the people who had him sitting on their bench in fantasy football. And man, I tweeted out on that Blitz guy's Twitter, if Chase Claypool got a 4th touchdown, I would buy his jersey. I've been looking all week for it and have had no luck until today. It's been sold out everywhere, and it's a good reason why it's sold out. I mean, he should be a special player. Tomlin should have let the kid have his day, but coaches normally don't like to talk up rookies. I could see why Tomlin doesn't want to talk about his wide receivers, because look what happened to Antonio Brown. I mean, he went off the rails and became a clown. I mean, he still currently has Blitzberg blocked on Twitter. Here's an interesting stat. The first person he blocked before he went off the rails was us, and he never looked back. It was a circus from then on out. But I think ultimately, back to Chase Claypool, the best stat for Chase Claypool, other than getting 4 touchdowns, was shattering the Steelers rookie franchise record. Lynn Swann, Franco Harris, or any of the other Pittsburgh legends have never done what Claypool has done. That's pretty special. Looking forward to seeing more of Claypool throughout the week.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Zach, all the great Steelers in the past, Franco Harris and Lynn Swann, etc. They didn't accomplish what Claypool had on Sunday. It's just a truly incredible performance by him. And he's the first Steeler since 1968 to have 4 touchdowns in one game. But the Eagles had no answer for him. They, like you mentioned, Ty, were putting Darius Slay on them and putting Darius Slay on Claypool. And he was running some really great routes against their quarterbacks. Just, he looks like, he's a rookie, and he looks like he's like, a veteran in a sense. Like, he's just so mature, and he gets the offense, like Ben always mentioned, that he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And it's just, incredible, coming into the season without any OTAs, mini camp, and preseason games. Like, yeah, we knew Claypool's a great player and everything, based off his college play, but we didn't know how fast he would get the offense and he would explode, onto the scene like he has right now. And just, every game this season he's made a big catch or play, and he just went off against the Eagles.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He's not raw. When they come out of college like that, they're normally raw, and they like to ease them in. Well, they didn't ease them in against the Eagles. He went off. He looked polished. He looked like a wide receiver, an NFL wide receiver. He just looked great.
Yeah, it's well-deserved. He's worked so hard, especially being a rookie. He's had to work his way up to get those looks. And this just makes, life easier on every wide receiver on that team, because this means that, defenders are going to have to keep an eye on him. just like, let's say, Juju Smith-Schuster, this is probably why he's not getting as much, production this year, is because he's getting targeted by corners as like the number one receiver. So having this extra threat will significantly help this offense.
But I think we have to give a ton of props to Steelers wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard. If I could somehow get a chance to talk to him just talk about, like, how does he work with these guys, especially Claypool. He's a new guy in town, had to play a huge role in how Claypool was just exploded onto the scene.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ty, about Hilliard coming in and coaching the receivers and specifically Claypool, but also Kevin Colbert. I mean, he's just unbelievable at drafting receivers. Through the years during his tenure, you just look at all the names. It's just amazing.
Not one first round pick is a receiver.
Yeah, that's incredible. Doing his job right. Chase Claypool, man. He's an athlete. I mean, in high school, I came across this video today of him playing point guard in high school. And he was averaging 40 points a game. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. So he's going to be special.
To continue talking a little bit about Claypool, NFL media has been eating him up. Did any of you guys see that Pat McAfee interview?
Yeah, I watched it yesterday, and yeah, he's definitely making the media rounds. Today I saw he was on the Rich Eisen show, and what was that he had on, Zach? Was it the Snickers chain or something? He was
the Hunger Snicker Player of the Week. I mean, he's going to be every Player of the Week this week.
Yeah, and you can start to see that he's starting to get attention through social media, and he's going to start getting those big endorsements and everything.
Hopefully he'll change the game for Canadian athletes and maybe create a pipeline from the CFL for more teams, but more so the Steelers than anything else. And the Steelers' biggest success of the day, play calling wise, was throwing it in reverse. Chase Claypool's touchdown was the first of 5 jet sweeps called by the Steelers on the day. Ray McCloud actually was the leading rusher for the team with his 58-yard run leading the way. Notably, pre-snap motion was a huge part of the Steelers' play calling all game. Even when they weren't running the jet sweep, they were feigning to it a little bit. I wonder how much the absence of Derek Watt contributed to that. But with no preseason, all season really, if you notice, the Steelers have been utilizing that concept. And they didn't really have success until the Eagles came to town. I highly recommend that people check out Nick Farabaugh of Steelers Now's film study article that covers the play calling concepts the team used in their win. He's been watching closely all season, and guys, I wonder, have you been noticing really a trend in the Steelers play calling with Matt Canada certainly playing a role?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. I mean, it just gets more and more creative as the season goes on. Like we saw early in the game, we saw a couple issues, communication-wise with the offense, with Ebron not getting lined up. Ben took that early timeout, because it seems like too much is going on. But as we keep moving out through the season, and I think these guys work more and more together, I think we'll start seeing more and more of these things because, it paid off big time with that Ray McCloud run. But, it's just, us Steelers fans, it's like we sometimes yell at Randy for being too creative on a 3rd and 1 or something like that. But, like that does like a draw play or, like a toss that ends up 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's this, we need to see, as Steelers fans, as long as this keeps working, I mean, it definitely looks complicated and it looks interesting, but, we just need to keep seeing it, work out, and we'll definitely accept it.
I do want to say this. The Steelers did kind of use a little bit of jet sweep concepts last year with the failed experiments in the Wildcat offense. So it's not necessarily a new concept, but maybe the new concept is that it's actually working now.
Yeah, at times during the game, though, I kept tweeting out Ben should just go no huddle and forget about Fichtner. Some of the play calling is ridiculous. I mean, and speaking of Ray, man, he's so fast. I still can't believe he was sitting on the waiver wire waiting for a team to pick him up. That was a steal for the Steelers. And picking him up. They can use him out wide in the running game with reverses on kickoffs and punt returns. There's so many ways they can utilize him. I tweeted out a photo of his hair sticking up this week for laughs, and Said he was so fast, his hair looks like a lightning bolt struck him. All good, clean fun. He's a talented player, and I'm glad he's on the Steelers.
Yeah, you've seen the Matt Canada effect really from the beginning of the first game against the Giants. You see a lot of motions during their runs, and even doing like pre snap things where like Alejandro Villanueva lining up on the right side and like switching over to the left. Definitely Matt Canada has an impact on this offense, and I like it so far. It's a lot of creativity, and with seeing that McCloud on that that end around type of play, going for 58 yards was just a great play, and it's great to have him on the roster because Ryan Switzer would have never brought that to the offense.
Absolutely not. And we'll tweet it out right now about Ryan Switzer.
Yeah, he wouldn't have brought that impact. He didn't have that game-changing speed, or he's just been so much better on kick returns and punt returns also. And he's just the overall better receiver. Obviously, and that's why Switzer was the odd man out, which we didn't really know if was going to happen because Ben and him have such a close relationship. But McCloud's obviously the better player.
Yeah, I'm really, now that you mentioned that he was on the waiver wire, it's like McCloud went to Clemson, and we all know since the turn of the college football playoff how Clemson has been dominating out there really since 2016. I'm really surprised that I've always had a feeling that if a guy played in the championship, the national championship or something like that, or played in a high-level bowl game, you certainly should look at that because, yeah, it's college, but that's still a little bit of a championship pedigree there.
Yeah, he ran a 4.530 combine. It's crazy, because he looks much faster than that, especially, him on the, on our return, like on the return team in special teams. It's the impact he has. He looks so much faster. Just so much more explosive than what we've seen out of other guys. Like, for the last couple of years, almost last 5 years, it just feels like we've been looking for that guy. And right now he looks like he can fill in that spot for now.
Well, if there's one thing we could say about this, guys, the last time, we're still waiting for a kick return touchdown. The last time the Steelers had a kick return touchdown, it was Antonio Brown on a kickoff reverse against Tampa.
Boy.
Yeah, we're still searching for that. We got a punt return last year with Deontay Johnson, and we'll talk a little bit about him later.
If anybody can do it, he has the speed to do it. So he's got to break one here shortly.
How are we supposed to feel about the Steelers' defensive performance so far? It's clear the defense, especially in pass coverage, in a way, hasn't been up to snuff. Yeah, Carson Wentz threw 2 interceptions to Steve Nelson, but overall, we were talking in our preview podcast with EJ Smith and John Marks that we were waiting to see the MVP candidate from 2017, and I think in a way, certainly, we kind of got him, and it was all thanks to the aforementioned Travis Fulgham, who showed out alongside Claypool, snagging 10 passes for 152 yards and a touchdown, improving on a performance in which he scored the game winner against San Francisco. How can we gauge it with the pass coverage? Because it's always been a notorious fact with the Steelers, at least since the days past of Rod Woodson, even going with Troy for a while, that the pass rush really makes the pass coverage for the Steelers.
Yeah, it's just the faster that defense can get to the quarterback, I think the easier it makes it on the corners, in the secondary. I just right now, I just don't think we need to panic at this. We need to keep seeing how the season develops. I think we're waiting for that big breakout game out of Minka or even, other guys in the secondary. We just don't panic, but still, it's just worth talking about and trying to get to the bottom of. And hopefully that's what Tomlin and the defensive staff are doing this week.
Yeah, and today Tomlin didn't seem too worried about the defense. He said it was a small sample size, and he looks forward to getting in the kitchen with the Browns because the AFC North is hot. I trust Tomlin on fixing the things that need to be fixed with the defense. I am also glad he is keeping it close to his vest when talking about what they need to fix. No need to tip your hand and give the opponents their weaknesses. We will get a better sample size once they play the Browns this week, the Titans, and then the Ravens, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really overly concerned right now. I'm a little, it's kind of odd, how they're giving up those big plays, and Minka hasn't had a big impact yet. But like Tom mentioned, like those guys like the Eagles, they're paid professionals as well, and sometimes they're going to make big plays, and they did it. Fulgham especially, the Steelers were in good positions at times, but he just went up there and made the play. But I think over time they'll definitely get better, and like I said, I think they'll fix it up.
Another thing to talk about is the run defense. It was finally busted open for the first time this season with former Woodland Hills standout Miles Sanders breaking off a 74-yard run in the first quarter. But from there on out, it's kind of the typical Steelers defense. He was shut down. He would only add 6 more yards to his total from there on. And with that, they're still the best defense against the run this league, giving up only 256 yards on the ground total.
Yeah, definitely after that play, we were probably all wanting to tear our hair out, but still, just like you said, only 6 yards after that. That's phenomenal. That's crazy. Like,
yeah, they made the certain adjustments, but they still didn't make the certain adjustments with the secondary. I think Butler. Sometimes the Steelers, I feel like they just stick with the game plan and they don't, like Bill Belichick for example, he has a game plan, but if he sees the other team playing against that game plan and he has to make some adjustments inside the game, he makes the adjustments. It doesn't seem that way at times with the Steelers, but I do think that on the defensive line, they're phenomenal. I mean, they're the best in the league, and I think they did make the necessary adjustments to that as well.
Yeah, the Eagles, they just had the perfect call on that Miles Sanders 74-yard touchdown run. The Steelers brought the blitz and they caught him with that draw. And Mike Hill, when missed the tackle, he's been phenomenal this season. But at that one play, he had a bad missed tackle there, and they had great blocking downfield. And Sanders, took it to the house. But the secondary, I think Butler might be just blitzing too much, and the secondary is in vulnerable situations. And I think they have to start moving Minka around a little bit because, was it Pro Football Focus said that he's only been targeted 4 times this year. So I think, they just have to, move him around and disguise a little bit more just so he could, maybe be more impactful on the defense.
Well, just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up, at least on the pass defense's struggles, they are 16th in passes defended, 15th in passing yards allowed per game, and give up the most yards per completion. But they're 3rd in interceptions and 2nd in INT rate. Maybe it's obvious that the pressure has been helping, and also being up late, it allows you more chances to get picks out there. So, I mean, I have a feeling that maybe the pass defense can creep up into, it's still middle of the league for the most part, but maybe they'll creep up into like the 10s, 13th at least, hopefully.
Yeah, they're way too talented to be 16th. I mean, they have Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick, even Terrell Edmonds. I mean, people don't like him that much. And I keep saying that I'm going to watch video on him because I think he just falls out of place. He's got the athleticism. I just don't understand. Maybe he bites at the ball. I don't know. He just always seems off whenever there's a big play. He seems like he's the one that's off. And the funny thing is these teams have targeted Minka Fitzpatrick 4 times, and guess who they've targeted 17 times? Terrell Edmonds. So, I mean, they're going on. They're targeting Edmonds, and they're seeing that he is. I just think I agree with Chris on this. I think they should disguise Minka a lot more. He'll be a ball hawk.
Yeah, Minka really established himself as basically a pass defense. You really have to go back and think hard of like the last time that Minka really had the opportunity to make a big stop in the game. It's in between the Arizona game, the game against the Rams last year, and of course that pick 6 against the Colts. I mean, it's just like, that's the life of a guy back there playing center field. It's the ball's just not going to come to you sometimes, and teams know who to attack these days. I mean, analytics and all that other stuff. It's tough, but regardless, a tweet from Adam Crowley really just made me conflicted about the team's performance. It's like everyone's going to say this hasn't been good, but it's just like the entire league really hasn't been good defensively. If you're taking the over, you're making a ton of money this year. The Steelers, for all that, are still third in total defense, and yeah, that's the run defense, and sixth in points against, and obviously when you score more than the other team, I mean, it's the name of the game, and eighth in turnovers. So it's a Jekyll Hyde. You don't really know how to feel about it right now, and you just go like, in the old saying of Mike Tomlin, nothing's killed us.
Yeah, you're right. Turnovers, they come in bunches sometimes. It's real weird. Like Mika last year, a lot of those interceptions came on tips and stuff. So sometimes just be in the right place at the right time. And, they had 38 takeaways last year, and it was a great number to have. But, they might not reach that this year. But you just hopefully the secondary could fix their issues, because up front they're just dominant, getting pressure on the quarterback and getting sacks and stopping the run.
We can say this right now after talking to two guys that are close to the Eagles, that at least in terms of the total number of personnel and money allocated to the position, the Eagles' defensive line is the most stacked in the history of the NFL. I mean, you heard it here on the Renegade Blitz. They had 7 guys deep. They could have gone 9. It's like we didn't even really mention Vinny Curry, who's on the IR for the Eagles. But to get back on the subject, they didn't really manage to get to Ben Roethlisberger like they did to other teams. The Eagles came in, they blitzed less than the Steelers, but that's just by design for them with a 4-3. They only had 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits, one from Fletcher Cox and another from former Steeler Javon Hargrave. They managed to quell the performance of James Conner, only 44 yards on the ground, but a touchdown. And I really believe that this game, I said it on Twitter and someone liked it, that Conner has to make a decision between, does he want to be a guy that needs a fullback, or is he going to be a guy that just makes one move and picks a hole and go? He really struggled in the absence of Derek Watt, and there's a reason why the Steelers really had to rely on reverses last week.
Honestly, for how beat up the offensive line has been, I think they did a decent job on Sunday. I mean, but I still felt Ben was getting hit a lot more than usual. I mean, it got worrisome when Ben grabbed his elbow in the second quarter, but sometimes that's just part of the aches and pains of getting into the football. I mean, it did look like the offensive line did have trouble getting James Conner going, and there were a few holding calls that hurt the offense. But other than that, they weren't too bad. Dotson has been surprisingly good at protecting Ben Roethlisberger. Tomlin even complimented the young rookies this week, saying he is happy with the way they are developing. To be honest, I would rather have the Steelers' offensive line than the line that Le'Veon Bell has on the Jets. He has fallen completely off the face of the earth, and now the Jets are looking to trade him, and that was fast.
We'll talk a little bit about Bell later. I got something for that.
Go ahead. Exactly. It's like, with Ben, it's like, it just feels back to normal. Every game you feel like he's grabbing a part of his body and like his leg, his arm, and you're like, oh gosh. And then,
Speaking of Le'Veon Bell, sorry to interrupt you. Breaking news on the podcast. They are parting ways with Le'Veon Bell. They are releasing him. Breaking news.
Oh my gosh, 6 minutes ago, yeah.
I'll have to get the podcast out fast, guys. Well, breaking news as of this recording, and so it gets a little bit interesting, but we will talk about that a little later in the podcast. But guys, Zach, you kind of talked a little bit about at least the passing side of the game and with the offensive line. It's just like, what are your thoughts on Conner? It's like there's only so much you can do, I know, and especially with the Eagles, like almost hockey shift style of defensive line rotation. There's only so much you could do, I guess.
Sad to say, he's a great person, great story, but I don't think he's a number one running back. I mean, I don't get how he's completely fallen off. I mean, he looks like he's been working all off season. I mean, he looks to be in incredible shape. it just seems like Ben and him just can't hit it off for some reason. I mean, and I believe on the Eagles he only had 46 yards too. So I mean, he seems off this season for some reason.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Ty, about having the fullback. That's always been, Connor's game. Even when he was at Pitt, he's a power running back, and he likes that pulling guard and fullback coming through. But the Eagles they always have a good run defense. With that defensive line, like you mentioned, they're highly talented. But I thought the offensive line did a good job. Which it seemed like he got more pressure, but that's great going up against the Eagles, who coming into the game on Sunday led the league in sacks with 17.
Yeah, not sure what the deal is with Connor. Like you guys are saying, is it confidence? Like he just needs to hit the hole sometimes, and sometimes it's either he's not doing it, he's not hitting the right spots. But his only saving grace is that he can catch the ball, and if somebody else can do that, his time in Pittsburgh might be up pretty soon.
That's one of the questions that you really have with the Steelers. It's just like they need a pass catching back, and that's the one thing. It's like he's in here. It's like I want to say that it's like it's just between the ears. It's like he's bouncing around too much, and he doesn't seem like he's not Lev Bell. I keep on saying this. I said this in a later podcast. He's trying to be Lev Bell, and he's just not Lev Bell. He is James Conner. He's a traditional old school running back. I think of Eddie George back then, where he had like some sort of fullback, whether it be Lorenzo Neal or names escape me right now, but it's just like there's so many running backs that just like they needed that fullback and it was so important to them. And again, it's clear he's missing Derek Watt because Derek Watt sprung him against Denver, which got him over the hump with 100 yards. Because before that, we said it on the podcast. It didn't look good for him until he broke that off. And the Steelers had 3 100-yard rushers going into each of their games, and that obviously ended against Philadelphia.
Yeah. His best game so far was probably against what was against the Texans. He broke off a number of big runs, but other than that, it's been not very good. Other than which added to the stat line was that big 59-yard run against the Broncos to go over 100 on that day.
Yeah, it's just I'm glad the Steelers are still being creative, with their running because if these backs continue to struggle, like even don't want to change the player, but Benny Snell's not been after that one game he went over 100. It's like he's not been solid in a couple carries he's had. McFarland's looked good. He didn't have too much of a chance this game, but it's just, I hope the Steelers just continue to be creative with the guys they have. Because all these guys have specific skill sets, and even Connor does. It's just I just want them to put them in the right situations to be the most successful.
Zach, final thoughts before we move on to injuries this week?
I think that I don't think that Connor is going to be with the Steelers after this season, and I hate to say it because I really do like Connor, and I just think that he hasn't produced the way he has been prior, and I think his time's coming up in Pittsburgh, unfortunately.
I think he's here, but he's going to have to take a massive hometown discount. He would have to accept the fact that he's a number 2 in this town. It's not looking good for him. And I hate to say that for a guy that went to Pitt in my own backyard. It shouldn't end this way for him. But
absolutely,
he's going to have to maybe accept. He either changes the way he runs the ball or he's going to have to accept it's just not working.
Yeah, and at times it seems like when Connor runs through the hole to rush, when he gets hit, he just falls down. It doesn't seem like he's just continuously explosive and running the ball, continuously getting those yards after catch or yards of rushing. But I mean, he just seems off this season, and I hope he turns it around. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, we all are. It's just last thought. It's just, it's like all off season. It seems like he's slimmed down, put on more muscle, but it's just the Connor that's been the best is the guy who's, he's big. He can bulldoze people, stiff arm people, throw them to the ground. And it's just so far we just haven't seen that. Like you said, he gets hit, he's down.
Yeah, like you guys mentioned, Connor's a great story, great person. I read his book this summer, which is a phenomenal read. But yeah, I'm not too sure about him being the future as the Steelers running back. I don't know if he's, like you guys mentioned, just a true number one running back in the league.
He can make a future as a change of pace back, but you guys have been saying that when he does, except you guys saying he's falling forward, and I've seen plenty of, especially against the Texans, and a couple of times, like when he does commit to charging forward, he's been a good running back. I mean, there was a staple drive, I believe, against Denver where he just fought his way into the end zone. So when he commits to being a power running back instead of trying to commit to maybe being something that he's not, he's been good.
Now, where would you guys rank him as far as a running back in the league?
He's got to be at least. He's not top 10, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I know that. I haven't really. I think the last time I saw his statistics in the NFL, he was hanging around the 20th percentile. So I just don't think that.
I mean, I'll take Dalvin Cook. Just guys off the top of my head. He's not up there. Obviously, with Barkley, and McCaffrey. Even Miles Sanders. I mean, would you guys take Miles Sanders over James Conner?
Absolutely, without hesitation.
And considering that guy, I put him in a better offensive line because he's had like 96, and remind you guys, he got stuck behind Saquon Barkley for 2 seasons. He only had one season in Penn State, which honestly for a running back is a good thing because he's fresh. So if he ever becomes available and he's cost effective, I take him. But we'll move on into injuries. At least during the game, there was a couple. We had David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey on the offensive line. Fortunately, the Eagles' D-line platoon didn't really take advantage. Deontay Johnson left the game, and that allowed McCloud to get more playing time. And T.J. Watt had a shoulder injury, but he returned to action in the fourth quarter, described by Tomlin in his after-game presser as nicks and bruises. Guys, were there any updates from the Tuesday presser?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say thank God T.J. Watt returned back into that game. I mean, the Steelers cannot lose his motor. Him and Bud Dupree are honestly the best duo in the NFL. And if one of them go down, it will be hard to replace what they bring on the field each week. Tomlin did say today that Marquise Pouncey should be able to play Sunday against the Browns. And David DeCastro will be determined throughout the week in practice. So as it progresses, we'll see how his status progresses throughout the week. I mean, what's going on with David DeCastro this season? He just can't seem to stay healthy. He's a hell of a good player, and the Steelers need him to get healthy as soon as possible because they are thin on the offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. Dotson has been very, very, very good, but if somebody else goes down this O line, who else is there? It's just we need him to. I say the Steelers need to rest DeCastro this week, not rush him back. Give him one more week just to rest because we'll be okay. Dotson has proved that he can be okay outside of that penalty he had, but I think that's just a rookie mistake. He'll get over it.
Yeah, Dotson. He was lined up with Fletcher Cox, who's one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and you just could see I've seen a couple clips on Twitter, and he just has such good hands. Like when he punches and. He has, very heavy hands where he just, just very powerful. So yeah, I wouldn't, be worried if Dotson had to replace DeCastro for on Sunday.
Yeah, I would feel very comfortable with that. I mean, Dotson's a stud. But Deontay Johnson, he's a very talented player who is haunted by injuries. I think the next issue with Johnson would be holding on to the football. He seemed like he was able to go. Watching the game, it seemed like he was able to go back into the game and was wearing his helmet on the sidelines. I don't know if any of you saw that.
Yeah, I
But it
saw
seems
that.
like Tomlin wanted to be cautious with him, not taking a shot at Deontay because he is super talented. But I feel we wouldn't have seen Chase Claypool pull in the special performance he did against the Eagles. In a way, it was a blessing in disguise for Chase Claypool. But I would rather see Deontay out there playing with both Juju and Claypool because it just gives Ben Roethlisberger more weapons.
Yeah, I think we'll see. He'll be all right. I feel like I think you guys all agree. Hopefully this part of the season, it's just a quarter season. Hopefully it's just a shaky start, but just hopefully these injuries don't continue for him, as especially as a player, because these things will build up on him, and that's not what you want to see in an early career. Is concussions, all these injuries that could potentially slow him down, because the Steelers are going to need him down the stretch for sure.
Yeah, and I mean these bumps and bruises are probably coming from not having a preseason too. I mean,
yeah, we've seen that all over the league.
that's tough, not having a preseason. And now people that were complaining about not having a preseason, now we should have a preseason, especially for veteran players. I mean, they're just older. They need the reps. They need to experience football. They need to get hit. I mean, it is what it is.
And guys, well, on Fox it was kind of a Ben Roethlisberger day a little bit. He had a nice chat with Terry Bradshaw that I seen on YouTube, and it was very nice. Good to see that those two guys are able to have civil discourse. And what's your thoughts on Ben's performance so far? This game, he was 27 for 34, 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, people have been ragging on him about not being the old gunslinger Ben that threw the long ball and just like interceptions that'll just pull your hair out like he did against Denver. But that's the lone uh, bugaboo on his record so far. It's he's been efficient with short to mid routes and just super efficient. And at that age, with other quarterbacks around the league, that's just fine for us. But apparently for them, that's just no.
I mean, 10-1 quarterback interception ratio right now. Can't have any complaints about that. That's been a big issue with Ben. Over the years, is, throwing too many interceptions or forcing a ball. But this year he's been just so efficient, and he's been reading the defenses so well, and getting the ball to so many different receivers. It's just not one guy like back with Antonio Brown, where obviously such a great talent that he consumed a lot of those receptions, but here now, Juju's getting some action. Claypool went off on Sunday against the Eagles, and Ebron had a big game a couple weeks ago against the Texans. So everyone's just putting their hands in the pile and producing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben Roethlisberger is still a little rusty right now. I mean, he was out for a full year, and he's coming into the season without a preseason. He had a major elbow surgery as well, so I think with how Ben Roethlisberger is playing, and the numbers he is putting up well exceeds my expectations for a quarterback coming into his 7th season off of major elbow surgery. And as time goes on, he is going to get back to his own self and perform like we know how he can perform. I mean, besides, the guy is 4-0 right now, so ultimately people will complain just to complain. But about anything right now. I mean, my overall assessment of Ben's performance is a great performance against the Eagles. I think he did a great job.
Yeah, 10-1 is just not the Ben we know. Like that ratio, it's just wow. It looks like the quarterbacks like Russell Wilson. Obviously they're on a whole different level, but just like that ratio is just what we see in other quarterbacks. So it's just nice to see Ben Roethlisberger, knock on wood, continue to be safe with the football.
Ben Roethlisberger, with the averages right now through 4 games, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. When you put that over a full season, that's 40 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. I know that he has a ton of competition with the Comeback Player of the Year award, with Alex Smith, which if he plays the rest of the season out, I think even if he does horribly, that's a Comeback Player of the Year award for him. But of course, you got Cam Newton, who was unceremoniously released by Carolina, and before COVID was doing a pretty good job too. So it's going to be interesting. But if he keeps this up, you have to find something for Ben. It's like, offensive awards typically just like float around to everyone. It's like FedEx Air. I don't know, maybe AFC Offensive Player of the Year, but that seems like a Mahomes thing. and that's always a given with him. It's just like they got to find something for that guy that isn't like team MVP or something like that. I mean, we're not gonna go hooting and hollering over that, really.
Yeah, I posted that article about how Alex Smith is now in the lead for comeback player of the year. Since he played on Sunday, and some Steeler fans were upset by that because they look at it as like not so much the story, but the stats on the field and who's performing well. But what Alex Smith has come back from is just truly remarkable. I wouldn't have an issue if he continued to play and he did win the award, just because coming back from that injury when the odds were against him, it's just I wouldn't have an issue with it.
His leg's still kind of deformed. It's like you can tell something happened to him. It's like even then,
wasn't like he was in jeopardy of losing his leg. They said,
and his life.
Yeah, they were going to amputate it. Yep, and he was going to lose his life.
Yeah, so if he got comeback player of the year, if he continues to play, I would have no issue with that.
Ben would get the unofficial AFC comeback player of the year. No question. It's an award that certainly he's in contention for, and maybe with team impact he might get that, but with the NFL it's like he just doesn't get the love that he deserves, especially for the start. Well, Eric Ebron, he was the second leading receiver for the Steelers on Sunday, but you could say he had a little bit of a wild day. Had a fumble that was bailed out by the Eagles attempting a 57-yard field goal into the wind at Heinz Field. Poor Jake Elliott. Also, he almost got screwed over by a fumble by the refs again, but fortunately, video reviews showed that was an incomplete. And guys, that's just how it is sometimes in the NFL. It's just like these things happen, and fortunately, no harm, no foul. Steelers win.
I wonder what it was like on Philadelphia sports radio on Monday morning with that decision. Not only having a linebacker on Claypool, towards the end of the game where Claypool put the game away, but kicking that field goal because what was it, 4th and 5? They could have went for that. They made 10 straight third downs in the game. Why did they just go for it? But I know Elliott has a strong leg. He's made big kicks for them in the past. But, especially at Heinz Field, that was definitely a questionable decision.
Yeah, that was a brutal turnover by Eric Ebron. He needs to hang on to the ball. Thank God the Eagles missed that field goal. Otherwise, it would have changed the momentum of the game. And who knows what would have happened. I mean, when I saw the fumble, I said to myself, this is typical Steelers football. In typical fashion, do they hold the lead until they want to give us a heart attack at the end of the game? I mean, at that point when they fumbled, I felt like throwing my TV out the window at that point. I mean, it was, here we go again.
Yeah, typical Steelers, typical Sunday. It's just, you think everything's going to be okay. You start your day off normal, then the Steelers do this to us. But, luckily they've pulled it out four games this season, and hopefully they continue.
I want to say again, poor Jake Elliott, but yeah, he did have the leg for that. This is a man that hit a 61-yard game-winning field goal against the Giants as a rookie. It just pulled to the right for him, or he certainly had the leg for it, but it's just like there's just certain things you don't do in Heinz Field. And I know Pennsylvania kickers were having a good weekend, but also had a very bad weekend at the same time.
If you refer to the pit kicker?
Yes. 58-yarder in Boston College, but he can't even hit an extra point. Let's not get into Pitt football here. That's for the guys at DK Pittsburgh Sports and Chris Carter to handle. Yeah. Now let's get down to the interesting things that we were talking about earlier. But first, I want to go into a little bit of trade rumors. And it's tough to talk about this after waxing poetic about Ben Roethlisberger, but we have to remember with the interview with Terry Bradshaw, it reminded me of this. The team had to wait almost 21 years for a franchise quarterback after Terry Bradshaw. There were some good moments. Tommy Maddox, Cordell Stewart, Neil O'Donnell. But, guys, there's certainly some interesting prospects coming out here. We've heard about the situation in Washington with Dwayne Haskins. And, of course, we're keeping an eye on Sam Darnold after Juju's comments about playing with Sam Darnold again. I don't think he's going to go to New York or anything like that. And Josh Rosen, who's sitting on Tampa Bay's practice squad. Based on the rumors that are swirling around quarterbacks, would you rather have any of those three or potentially draft the quarterback?
Yeah, for me it's tough. All those guys are, they're all decent, but they've been at the wrong places. Some guys multiple times, like Rosen, who hasn't, in my opinion, really gotten a fair shot. And when he has gotten a shot, he hasn't really, shown too much. But my take as of now is, if Sam Darnold's ever available for trade, if he doesn't resign a contract, is possibly give him a shot on a short deal and see if he's the guy, but never, break the bank on these guys before you see what you got. And I'll let you guys take your takes then.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I would rather have Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, but we all know that is not going to happen. I mean, and Bill Belichick better not draft him either. But I think Sam Darnold fits the mold of Pittsburgh more. The kid has talent, but he's on a terrible team with the Jets. It's funny because the Steelers could probably get him for a second or third round pick. No way would I send a first round pick for him, though. I mean, it's funny to hear everyone scream no when they heard Juju bring him up, wanting him to come to Pittsburgh, because it actually could happen at the right price. Because I think Mason Rudolph is not the future with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope I am wrong, but from the sample size we have seen, he has been god awful. So I would have to say Sam Darnold at this point, but Trevor Lawrence would be incredible.
Yeah, I would agree with Mason Rudolph. He's definitely not the future. I think he's just a career backup, at best. And Dwayne Haskins, I think they should give him more of a chance there in Washington. But I'm not a big fan of Rosen. I would go with Darnold in this situation. Just I think he's showed some promise there in New York, but he just the Jets organization is just like a dumpster fire. They're one of the worst run organizations in the entire NFL, and you have to think Adam Gase's time is up there soon in New York.
Yeah, crazy eyes Gase out there. If there's one, so out of those three possible quarterbacks, I'd probably go Darnold. I agree with all you guys there because he's actually shown some flashes. I also like Trey Lance out in North Dakota State. I know he had one game in which he wasn't necessarily good, and with the Eagles situation, that's kind of a worry with taking FCS quarterbacks. So we'll find out and we'll see from there. But of course, the big story that everyone was talking about during this podcast was the release of Le'Veon Bell. Guys, what are your thoughts on the release of Le'Veon Bell? We had a little bit of chat while we were going through our podcast, but I want you guys to give me a more complete thought.
I think the Steelers were right all along. They let go of AB. They let go of Le'Veon Bell. And I'm looking right now at Twitter. Twitter's going crazy with this stuff. And I see that Le'Veon Bell made $28 million with the Jets for 18 games. That's insane. The Jets made the wrong move, and they're paying the price for it.
Yeah, I always liked Bell. I always thought he was a good guy and everything, but it seemed like he was a little bit too full of himself and a little immature at times, I think. And he bet on himself. He wanted to make money, and that's good for him and everything. But he decided to go to the Jets. It's just like I mentioned before, like just terrible run organization. And he pretty much just fell flat on his face in the whole decision to go to New York.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just, just what happened. It's like, and if the Steelers have the opportunity to get him, part of me just says, no, don't do it. You're 4-0 without him. Steelers teams that have started with him haven't even, started off, this hot right now. It's like, you don't want to throw off his chemistry, but who knows? Like, what will happen? Who will he go to? He basically, yeah.
I think ultimately this is a Bill Belichick moment right now. He could swoop in and just take Le'Veon Bell right now and just use him for what he's meant to be used for. And I don't really know what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell, but stay tuned.
Definitely see in the coming days.
They didn't use him right there in New York with Adam Gase. I don't know what happened, but they just never seen eye to eye, him and Gase. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Marcus Gilbert tweeted out, "The grass ain't always greener on the other side, my friend."
That was
pretty
great.
interesting.
Isn't he out in Arizona right now?
Yeah, but he opted out this year due to COVID. It seems like some of the linemen didn't always like get along with Bell, or I mean, I know Foster and Pouncey, they went off on him that one year when he didn't come into camp, and Gilbert was on those teams, so it's kind of interesting how Bell, it was a selfish. He made his money. Good. That's why I mentioned that he fell out in his face, but he still made $28 million. But as far as his career and stuff, wasn't a good move to sit out that entire year, and then get the big contract with the Jets, and and now he's looking for a new team.
Yeah, it's just, even if he didn't stay with the Steelers, I mean, he had basically a ticket to go to almost any team. I mean,
well, he chose the money and he paid hey, that's good for him. I would do that. Hey, put me in the back of the Jets offensive line. Let me get destroyed. I would do it for $28 million. But I mean, football wise, he sold his soul. And I'm actually looking at game averages right now from Pittsburgh to the New York Jets, and I could see, man, he's fallen off completely. I mean, he 19.8 rushing attempts with Pittsburgh. He did 15.5 with the Jets. Yards per catch 4.3, fell down to 3.3 on the Jets. 86.1 rushing yards with the Steelers. He fell down to 50.8 per game. 5.0 receptions per game. He fell to only getting 4 catches a game with the Jets. And his receiving yards have completely plummeted. He did 42.9 yards with Pittsburgh, and he fell down to 29 with the Jets. So, I mean, he gets what he deserves, I guess. I mean, he got his $28 million, so we'll see what happens with him.
One word, guys. What team does he go to?
Bill Belichick, Patriots. Or back home.
Yeah, that's the only two logical. I mean, I'm trying to think of some sleeper teams. I mean, honestly, I could see almost any team. Bears have been talked about as could possibly, due to a couple injuries on their side, I could see him, being in the midway. I mean, any contender, maybe Kansas City, something like that. But, they got their backs there, other than Damian Williams dropping out.
They won't put up with him.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, I think any team that needs a running back, he'll benefit them. I think obviously great talent. I don't think I'll be pretty surprised if the Steelers brought him back. I think what happened there, I think he kind of burned some bridges there with Colbert and Tomlin. I think they would try to just move forward with what they got.
If Bell was smart, he needs to go where there is an offensive line. He needs help. He's very talented. He can catch out of the backfield. He's very talented. But he needs to stop being stupid and going to teams like the Jets or any of those other lower teams. He needs to get with the team that's offensive, that has an offensive line, and get back on track.
Well, I'll put it to you like this, guys, to really wrap this up. You go to the place that basically is built on hype and maybe the possibility that you can win a ring. Tampa Bay. Even though their backfield is kind of crowded a little bit with Leonard Fournette and all that stuff, but Fournette had a good season, but he's still kind of like, that cliffish thing that Max Kellerman likes to say. But who knows? It could be Pittsburgh. There is a need, and there is an offensive line. It's improved a little bit over the past year, but I honestly, with him, I could see him signing a team. I could see him just sitting out.
Hey, and in the offseason, who was he training with? He was training with James Conner down in Miami. Those two were together. So I mean, I don't know. I kind of, half of me agrees with Chris and half of me doesn't agree. But I'm torn. I have no idea. It will be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with Zach that I could see Belichick coming in, and it'll be a vintage Belichick move to come in. And,
it's a Belichick move. You're right with that.
To get Le'Veon Bell and maybe the Chiefs too. I mean, can you imagine him and having Mahomes, throwing the ball to Bell out of the backfield? Man, that would be a great fit too.
I think only if he's comfortable with playing the LaShawn McCoy role, where he was on the Chiefs, but he wasn't really on the Chiefs, if you know what I mean. So that depends on what role he wants. Because honestly, I just don't know what that guy. It's like he could still do some things. It's like he's not totally dead out of the water. He was just up in New York.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see, where it lands and how quick it will be for a team to pick him up.
Isn't it kind of crazy? What if I told you Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown would be without an NFL team just 2 years after leaving the Steelers?
Yeah,
I mean, in a way, it kind of feels great to be honest as a Steelers fan because they put us through hell.
Yeah, they had so much talent. They definitely should have at least made a Super Bowl with them. When they're on their team, when on the team with the Steelers. But they just they got too big headed and they went.
They
off
played
the rails.
themselves.
Yeah, AB especially, he just completely went off the rails, and Bell just chased the money.
It's the same thing about Antonio Brown. It's like he had the opportunity to go to that Buffalo team that the Steelers traded him to initially. It's like,
but he didn't want to go to Buffalo, which honestly, now in hindsight, with how well Josh Allen's playing, it could have worked out.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to that playoff game they lost, 2017. It happened in 2018, but 2017 season to Jacksonville, and Bell mentioned his contract before that game, that week leading up to that, and he missed he was late to a walkthrough also. It was just a bizarre, they should have definitely made the Super Bowl that year. They were better than the Patriots. They had the Jesse James game where, they got, robbed there. But, Mike Mitchell was yelling at the Jaguars before the game or something. That was one time where, I was disappointed they lost to Jacksonville. But, in a sense, they kind of deserved it because they were, too confident going to that game.
I think this is interesting. We just got a tweet on Blitzberg about this. What about the Seattle Seahawks? What if Le'Veon Bell signs with the Seattle Seahawks? That's interesting. Who do they have as a running back right now?
Chris Carson
got injured, I believe. Got injured. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look, but I mean, I think he's probably he'll fit into any offensive system. He just he's a playmaker. The way they used him in New York was just mind-boggling. I don't know what Gase was doing.
Well, we've had a lot to talk about today. We're glad to finally have Zach Napolitano on the podcast with us, and that's all for us here. For Chris Ward, Guthrie Rasmussen, Zach Napolitano, I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz. Our next podcast, we will have Jake Burns, film analyst and writer for the Orange and Brown Report. Should be excited to talk Cleveland Browns, the next opponent for the Steelers. And that's all for us. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz. Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. Our podcasts are available on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.